In my previous Noita video, I showed the gigantic project that I'm working on, the big alchemy lab that I'm building in order to house all of the materials in the game so that I can then experiment with them all. Just to keep you updated a little bit with that, we've actually made a lot of really good progress discovering some cool things and obtaining almost all of the materials that we know are obtainable. There are really only a few left that I have not yet obtained. But anyway, this video is not really about that. Don't worry, I will be making another video going over all of the materials and all of the crazy alchemy. However, during the course of this process, over the last 6 months or so, we have discovered some new and interesting bugs that are related to the amount of time you are in a run for. What exactly breaks when you do super long runs like this? There is something absolutely crazy that happens if you do a very long run. So yeah, this is just going to be a really short video just showing you new things we learned about what breaks when you do a long run. I first want to thank Dexter CD, who not only discovered the thing you see on the thumbnail, which I'll show you a little bit later, but I gave him my save file when I noticed something going wrong and he ripped it apart in order to find out exactly what was going on with all of these systems that I'm going to show you that broke. So thank you very much, Dexter. Let's go. Liquids in Noita have a special jiggle animation on them to help differentiate them from other types of materials like powders. But if you have a long run going over 72 hours, something might look a little bit off with that animation. It actually starts jiggling twice as fast as normal between 72 hours and 145 hours. What happens after 145 hours? This is what all of my liquids look like. There's no jiggle at all. The jiggle animation just completely breaks if you have a run going over 145 hours. This isn't a problem, it's just the animation, it's not the physics of the material itself. But you could be tricked into thinking that the game crashed at times, because if you're just sitting still in a pool of liquid and there's no animation at all, you just have this still screen, it actually tricked me a few times. But other than that, there's nothing major, it's just the animation, or the lack of one anyway. It just makes things look ugly and like the liquids are made out of gel or something. Anyway, as opposed to that, this one is a little bit more serious or just annoying. Because if you do a run longer than 145 hours, telekinetic kick breaks, and you can no longer control physics objects. You can kick them away, and that's the extent of your control. So in my big alchemy run, telekinetic kick is actually an important perk for me since I'm interacting with all the secrets in the game, and a lot of those secrets involve moving things like physics objects up to the mountain altar. Unfortunate, but there's nothing I can do about it. Also, as I was just showing, I'm not sure if this is related to the amount of time in a run or if this is some other bug I encountered. But this is what the water drops should look like at the beginning of a run. In my run, the entirety of the mines are flooded because, as you can see, it seems like the entity that drips the water has been duped somehow, maybe multiple times. So I just have eventually the whole world is going to get flooded. However, this is something maybe you didn't know. There are actually invisible entities up here that spawn the water droplets, and those entities have HP and can be killed. So at any time, if I'm sick of my world getting flooded, I can always just come up here and kill these things. The next small, purely visual bug, at 145 hours, any wands that you have not yet purchased or picked up from item pedestals, they lose their bobbing up and down animation. Again, just a small bug, purely visual, but I wanted to cover everything that I noticed, so there you go. Next is another purely visual bug, but the stars in the sky stop blinking when you hit 145 hours, which we recently learned you might not have any stars in the sky if you've never died in the game, because stars spawn as you die, but it does hit a maximum number eventually, so you can't just fill the entire sky with just one big star. The next bug affects the Lukey legs, all the spider legs in the game. In the most extreme case, all of my mecha culmies throughout every parallel world have completely lost their legs and their ability to move. So my mecha culmy is literally a ball, a stationary ball. Aw, poor little guy. But why did these bugs happen at 145 hours? Well, to simplify that explanation, basically, Noita has a frame counter and a separate time played value. The frame counter is an integer, but the time played value is a float. And floating point isn't perfect. The further the value gets from 0, the less precise it is. So basically what happens, once that value reaches 524,288, it actually rounds down to 0, and then the value is frozen from that point on. And since the value is frozen, a bunch of things break in the game. There's more stuff that breaks, such as parts of the inventory and levitation component of the player, but I haven't yet observed what exactly happens. It might just be very, very minimal. Alright, and now it's time for the bug of all bugs. Probably one of the most interesting video game bugs ever. If, and this is a big if you can possibly have a run going for 9,942 hours, the entire world, every solid surface and object, everything becomes lightning. If you have electricity immunity, you can walk along this without getting stunned every 2 seconds and then dying. However, soon after, your movement just completely breaks. You become spaghettified in a way. Unless, of course, you're stained with teleportation. Then you can still teleport around the world, witnessing the destruction of everything. And yes, I did, of course, try to end the game while the world was in this state. And as you can see, the gold vein did still get created. Any new materials that get created are still going to get created, but then if they break and become physics objects or powders, then they will become electricity afterwards, or lightning. And yes, of course, guys, of course I also tried sitting inside the cauldron when this happened. This is maybe the altar of permanence, after all. What's more permanent than staying inside the cauldron for 9,942 hours? I mean, yeah, I didn't stay there for the whole time, but yeah, of course, I sat inside the cauldron and died via electricity. And as you can see in the end stats screen, the time that this happens, 9,942 hours. Exactly. But why exactly does this happen? Why does the world at 9,942 hours become electricity? Well, in the wise words of Dexter, the lightning happens once the frame counter nearly reaches 2 to the 31st minus 1. It actually happens 1,000 frames before that. The reason why it does this is because a cell's electricity charge in the game is stored relative to the frame counter. So for example, if a cell should receive a charge of 2,000, the game will say frame_counter plus 2,000 inside the cell. So as frames increase by 1, the charge decreases by 1. However, once the frame counter is near 2 to the 31st minus 1, the result of that addition is a very large negative number instead of a positive number. So this will be true for nearly everything, i.e. everything becomes lightning. Or basically the frame counter overflows, and since lightning is relative to frame count, everything becomes electrified until the frame counter overflows once again in another 9,942 hours, and that number becomes positive once again. So yes, the world becomes lightning because the frame counter overflows and becomes a large negative number for 9,942 hours. So, I mean, if you want to do a run that's nearly 20,000 hours long, be my guest. As sort of a stretch goal in my alchemy run, I am going to see if it's possible to have that run going for 9,942 hours, so that I can have this happen legitimately in that run. Hopefully by then, I get all of the experiments finished that I plan. I know Twitch chat, you guys are like, when are you gonna do this? Just be patient. We got plenty of time. And if you guys want to join the Twitch chat, I am streaming every session of this alchemy run over at twitch.tv/FURYFORGED. Anyway, if we discover anything else crazy like this, I will let you know. And then once again, after I conduct many more experiments and learn a lot more. We have a long road ahead of us. I will 100% be putting out a gigantic video on all of the alchemy, all of the materials, all of the reactions, all of the knowledge gained by doing this pretty huge endeavor. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope that you found this interesting, and the race is on. Who will have a 10,000 hour run first? If the game updates, then we all gotta start over. Anyway, alright, see ya.